When Alpha King Obsidian Ravenhill impulsively bids just $1 for a mysterious woman with a burlap sack over her head at a brutal debt auction, he expects to save a stranger from a terrible fate. But when she whispers her name, Elara Thornwick, he realizes he's just bought back the lost love of his childhood, the heir to a pack everyone believes died 15 years ago. Will the broken bond between them prove stronger than the enemies who destroyed her family and now threaten to tear them apart forever? The smell of fear filled the night air like smoke from a dying fire. King Obsidian stood in the shadows, watching people push and shove around a wooden stage. His heart beat fast as he saw what was happening. Men were selling other people like they were old furniture or broken tools. "This is wrong," he whispered to himself. His hands turned into fists. The moon above looked angry, casting scary shadows everywhere. Obsidian had never seen anything so terrible in his whole life. A fat man with a big voice climbed onto the stage. "Welcome! Welcome!" he shouted. "Tonight we have special items for sale. People who owe money and can't pay it back." The crowd cheered like this was some kind of fun game. Obsidian felt sick to his stomach. He wanted to leave, but his feet wouldn't move. Something told him he needed to stay. "First up," the fat man announced, "a young man who owes 50 gold pieces." A skinny boy was pushed onto the stage. His clothes were torn and dirty. Tears ran down his face. 20 gold, someone yelled from the crowd. 30, shouted another person. Obsidian watched in horror as people bid on the boy like he was a horse at a farm auction. The boy looked so scared and alone. Finally, a mean-looking farmer bought him for 40 gold pieces. "Next," the fat man said with a big smile, "we have something very special." 2 guards dragged someone onto the stage. Obsidian couldn't see who it was because they had a brown bag over their head. A sign hung around their neck that said, "1," in big black letters. The person was small and wore a torn blue dress. Even with the bag on their head, Obsidian could tell they were trying to stand up straight and be brave. Their hands were tied behind their back with rough rope. "This woman owes 300 gold pieces," the fat man announced. "Her family ran away and left her behind. She has no one to help her pay her debt." The crowd laughed and pointed. Some people made mean comments about how she looked. Obsidian felt angry heat rise in his chest. How could people be so cruel? "Let's start the bidding at 100 gold, the fat man said. 100! Yelled a man with a scary smile. He looked at the woman like she was a piece of meat. 150, called out another man. Obsidian stepped closer to the stage. Something about this woman made his wolf spirit feel restless inside him. He had never felt anything like this before. It was like his soul was trying to tell him something important. The woman's head turned slightly toward where he was standing. Even though she couldn't see him through the bag, Obsidian felt like she somehow knew he was there. His heart started beating even faster. 200 gold, someone shouted. The bidding kept going higher and higher. Obsidian watched as cruel men fought over who could buy this mystery woman. Each bid made him more and more angry. These people didn't see her as a real person with feelings and dreams. Then something strange happened. The woman stopped moving completely. She stood perfectly still, like she was listening for something special. In that moment, Obsidian felt a connection he couldn't explain. It was like invisible strings were pulling his heart toward hers. 250, yelled the scary man with the mean smile. Without thinking, Obsidian opened his mouth and heard his own voice ring out across the square. $1. The entire crowd went silent. Everyone turned to stare at him. The fat man on stage looked confused, like someone had just told him that fish could fly. "Excuse me, sir," the fat man stammered. "Did you say $1? "You heard me correctly," Obsidian said, stepping into the light. His voice was calm but strong. $1 is my bid. People in the crowd started whispering to each other. Some laughed, thinking this was some kind of joke. Others looked angry that someone was messing up their fun auction. The woman on stage turned her head toward his voice again. This time, Obsidian was sure she was listening just to him. Even through the bag, he could feel her attention like warm sunlight on his face. "Sir, surely you mean $100? The fat man asked hopefully. "No," Obsidian said firmly. "I mean exactly $1. She's worth more than any amount of money you people could ever pay. But I won't give you more than $1 for something that should never be sold in the first place." The scary man with the mean smile stepped forward. "You can't be serious! I bid 250 gold! Obsidian looked right at him. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. The man suddenly felt very small and took a step backward without knowing why. $1, Obsidian repeated. "Final offer." The fat man looked around nervously. No one had ever seen anything like this before. The whole auction had stopped because of one strange bid. People in the crowd didn't know whether to laugh or get angry. "This is ridiculous," shouted the scary man. "You can't buy her for $1 when I'm offering real money." Obsidian walked slowly toward the stage. Each step he took made the crowd move back a little. There was something about him that made people feel nervous, like he was much more powerful than he looked. "Tell me," Obsidian said to the fat man, "what gives you the right to sell another person? What law says a human being can be bought like a bag of apples?" The fat man's face turned red. "She owes money. This is how we collect debts around here. And if someone can't pay, you sell them like animals?" Obsidian's voice got quieter, which somehow made it more scary. How interesting. The woman on stage hadn't moved during this whole conversation. She stood like a statue, listening to every word. Obsidian wondered what she was thinking under that bag. Was she scared? Angry? Hopeful? "Look, stranger," the fat man said, trying to sound important. "We have rules here. The highest bidder wins." That man offered 250 gold pieces. "And I'm offering something much more valuable," Obsidian replied. "I'm offering her freedom." The crowd gasped. No one understood what he meant. How could $1 buy someone's freedom when other people were offering hundreds of gold pieces? The woman on stage suddenly spoke. Her voice was quiet but clear. "Accept his offer." Everyone stared at her in shock. Prisoners at debt auctions never got to speak. They were supposed to stay quiet and let other people decide their fate. "You don't get a vote in this," the fat man snapped. "Actually," said a new voice from the back of the crowd, "she does." An old man with a long gray beard pushed through the people. He wore fancy clothes and carried a thick book under his arm. "I am Judge Aldrich, and I know the laws of this land better than anyone here." The fat man looked worried. Having a judge show up at his auction was not good news. "According to the law," Judge Aldrich continued, "if someone offers to pay a debt in full, the debtor has the right to choose their buyer, even if the offer is unusual. But $1 doesn't pay her debt," the scary man protested. "Ah," said the judge with a small smile, "but this gentleman isn't just offering $1. He's offering to take responsibility for her entire debt. That makes him legally responsible for the full 300 gold pieces." Obsidian nodded. "I accept those terms." The crowd buzzed with excitement. This was turning into the most interesting auction anyone had ever seen. The woman on stage lifted her head slightly, like she was trying to see through the bag. "This is crazy," the scary man yelled. "Why would anyone pay 300 gold for someone they've never even seen?" That was a good question. Obsidian asked himself the same thing. Why was he doing this? He didn't know this woman. He had never seen her face. Yet something deep inside him said this was the right thing to do. "Some things are more important than money," Obsidian said simply. The fat man looked around desperately. His perfect auction was falling apart. "Fine," he said angrily. "But you pay the full debt right now, or the deal is off." Obsidian reached into his coat and pulled out a heavy bag of gold coins. He tossed it to the judge, who caught it and quickly counted the money. 300 gold pieces. "Exactly," Judge Aldrich announced. The crowd fell silent again. No one could believe what they had just witnessed. A complete stranger had paid a huge debt for someone he had never met. "The debt is paid," the judge declared. "The woman is free to go with her rescuer." Two guards untied the ropes around the woman's hands. She rubbed her wrists where the rope had been too tight. Then she reached up and slowly pulled the bag off her head. Obsidian's breath caught in his throat. Auburn hair fell like liquid fire around her shoulders. Her face was beautiful, but marked by a jagged scar that ran from her left temple to her jaw. Her eyes were the color of storm clouds, gray and fierce, and full of secrets. But it wasn't her beauty or even her scar that shocked him. It was the feeling of recognition that hit him like lightning. He knew those eyes. He had seen that face before, years ago. In dreams he had almost forgotten. The woman looked directly at him for the first time. Their eyes met across the crowded square, and the world seemed to stop spinning. Time slowed down, until nothing existed except the two of them. "Thank you," she said softly. Her voice was like music he had been waiting his whole life to hear. Obsidian tried to speak, but no words came out. His wolf spirit was going wild inside him, howling with joy and confusion, and something that felt like coming home after a very long journey. The scary man pushed forward one last time. "This isn't over," he snarled. "That woman belongs to me." The woman turned to look at him, and something dangerous flashed in her storm-gray eyes. "I belong to no one," she said quietly. "I never have, and I never will." Her words carried a power that made everyone in the crowd take a step back. Even the scary man suddenly looked uncertain, like he had just threatened something much more dangerous than he realized. Obsidian finally found his voice. "Would you like to come with me?" he asked gently. "I have a carriage waiting." She studied his face carefully, like she was trying to solve a puzzle. "Why did you help me?" It was a simple question, but Obsidian didn't have a simple answer. How could he explain the feeling that had pulled him to this terrible place tonight? How could he describe the way his heart had recognized her before his mind even knew who she was? "Because," he said honestly, "I don't think we've met by accident." The woman tilted her head slightly, considering his words. Then, to everyone's surprise, she smiled. It was just a small smile, but it lit up her whole face and made the scar seem like a badge of honor instead of something to hide. "Perhaps you're right," she said. "Lead the way." As they walked toward his carriage together, Obsidian couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger than either of them understood. Behind them, the crowd slowly broke up, people heading home with stories they would tell for years to come. But one person didn't leave with the others. The scary man stood in the shadows, watching the carriage disappear into the night. His eyes were full of anger and something that looked like recognition. Who was this mysterious woman? And why did she seem so familiar to both men? "Your Majesty, the castle is in complete chaos." Caspian burst through the heavy wooden doors without knocking, his face pale as winter snow. Obsidian looked up from where he sat across from Elara in his private study. The fire crackled between them, casting dancing shadows on the stone walls. For the past hour, they had been sharing quiet stories about their childhood, carefully avoiding the painful memories that still hurt too much to touch. "What kind of chaos?" Obsidian asked, though he already knew the answer would not be good. "The entire pack is gathered in the Great Hall. They're demanding answers about your purchase." Caspian's eyes flicked nervously toward Elara, who sat perfectly still in her chair. Elara stood up slowly, smoothing down the simple blue dress the castle servants had given her. "They want to see the woman you bought for $1. "It's not that simple," Caspian said quickly. "Lady Miranda Ironwood arrived an hour ago with her father. They claim you were supposed to marry her next month." Obsidian's jaw tightened. The Ironwood family had been pushing for a marriage alliance for years, but he had never agreed to anything. "I made no such promise." "That's not what Lord Ironwood is telling everyone downstairs." Caspian looked between them both. "And there's more." 3 other pack leaders showed up right after Lady Miranda. "They all want to know why their king bought a human slave instead of choosing a proper wolf mate." Elara's hands began to shake slightly. She remembered being called a slave before, when cruel people looked at her scar and decided she was worth nothing. "Maybe I should leave." "No." Obsidian's voice was firm as mountain stone. "You're not going anywhere." But even as he said the words, doubt crept into his mind like cold fog. His pack had been restless lately. There had been problems with neighboring territories, food shortages during the long winter, and rumors of strange illnesses affecting some of the border settlements. The last thing they needed was their king causing more trouble by bringing home a mysterious woman. "There's something else," Caspian said quietly. "Some of the pack members are saying she smells wrong. Not fully human, but not wolf either. It's making everyone nervous." Elara's face went white. She had hoped no one would notice. Ever since that terrible night 15 years ago, her scent had been strange, caught between human and wolf, belonging to neither world completely. "We need to go down there," Obsidian said, standing up. "Together." "Your Majesty, I really don't think—" "Together," he repeated, looking directly at Elara. "Unless you're afraid." Elara lifted her chin, and for a moment, the scared woman disappeared. In her place stood someone who remembered being royal, even if that memory was buried deep. "I'm not afraid of a few angry wolves." But as they walked down the long stone hallway toward the Great Hall, the sounds grew louder and more frightening. Voices were raised in anger, chairs scraped against floors, and underneath it all was a low growling that made Elara's skin crawl. "Stay close to me," Obsidian whispered. "Wait." Elara stopped walking suddenly. "Before we go in there, I need to tell you something important." Obsidian turned to face her, noting how the torchlight made her scar look like silver lightning across her face. "The night my pack died, I remember more than I told you." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I remember running through the forest, and I remember hiding in a cave for 3 days. But there's something else." "What?" "I remember seeing other wolves there. Wolves that weren't sick with the plague. Wolves that were setting fires and poisoning the water supply." Her eyes met his. "Someone murdered my family, and they made it look like a natural disaster." Obsidian felt his blood turn to ice. If someone had deliberately destroyed the Thornwick pack, then Elara wasn't just a lost survivor. She was a witness to murder. "Do you remember who they were?" "No, but I remember their scent. And Obsidian, I think I smelled that same scent when I walked through your castle today." The Great Hall erupted like a volcano when Obsidian and Elara entered together. "There she is!" Lady Miranda Ironwood stood on a chair, pointing dramatically. Her golden hair gleamed under the chandelier lights, and her expensive green dress made her look like a jewel among the roughly dressed pack members. The human he chose over a proper wolf bride. "She's not human," growled an older man near the back. "Look at her eyes. They flash silver when the light hits them, and her scent is all wrong." Elara felt hundreds of eyes staring at her, judging her, finding her lacking. The massive stone hall suddenly felt too small, too hot, too full of angry energy that made her want to run and hide. "Silence!" Obsidian's alpha voice boomed across the room, and most of the pack immediately stopped talking. But the tension in the air remained thick as honey. Lord Ironwood stepped forward, his chest puffed out like an angry rooster. "King Obsidian, you have embarrassed my family and broken your word. You were supposed to marry my daughter and unite our packs." "I never agreed to that marriage," Obsidian said calmly, though his hands were clenched into fists. "Your father promised. My father is dead." The words cut through the air like a sharp blade. "I make my own choices, now." Lady Miranda's eyes filled with tears, though Elara suspected they were more angry than sad. "You would choose this damaged creature over me, over all of us?" "Watch your tongue," Obsidian warned, stepping protectively in front of Elara. But Elara moved around him, tired of hiding behind others. "You want to know what I am? I'll tell you." Her voice carried clearly through the hall. "My name is Elara Thornwick, last surviving member of the Thornwick pack." The silence that followed was so complete that Elara could hear her own heartbeat. "Impossible," whispered someone near the front. The Thornwicks died in the plague 15 years ago. That's what everyone was supposed to think, Elara said. But I survived. And I remember things that someone very much wants me to forget. Lord Ironwood's face had gone strangely pale. The plague took everyone. There were no survivors. How would you know? Elara asked, studying his face carefully. Were you there that night? Something flickered in Ironwood's eyes, just for a second, but Elara caught it. Fear. This is ridiculous, Lady Miranda said quickly. Even if she is who she claims to be, she's been living as a human slave for 15 years. She has no pack, no power, no worth to anyone here. She has worth to me, Obsidian said firmly. But does she have worth to the kingdom? The new voice came from the back of the hall, where a tall man in a dark cloak had been watching silently. Because I have news that might change everything. Everyone turned to look at the stranger. He threw back his hood, revealing sharp features and eyes like chips of ice. I am Darius Shadowthorn, messenger from the Northern Territories. Lord Crimson Felbane of the Blood Moon Pack is gathering an army. He claims that King Obsidian has become weak, distracted by human concerns instead of wolf business. That's not true, Caspian said angrily. Isn't it? Darius smiled coldly. Your king spent $1 on a human slave, while enemy packs are preparing for war. How does that look to potential allies? Murmurs rippled through the crowd like wind through wheat. Elara could smell the fear and uncertainty growing stronger by the minute. Furthermore, Darius continued, Lord Felbane offers a generous proposal. Surrender the human to him, marry Lady Miranda as originally planned, and he will call off his attack. Why would Felbane want me? Elara asked, though something cold was forming in her stomach. Darius's smile grew wider and more dangerous. Because, dear girl, you're not just the last Thornwick. You're the key to something much more valuable than you realize. The hall held its breath, waiting for an explanation that would change everything. What ancient secret was Elara carrying that made her worth more than a kingdom's peace? Close your eyes and listen to your heartbeat, Obsidian whispered, as moonlight painted silver streaks across the castle garden. Elara stood frozen beside the ancient fountain, her hands shaking as memories crashed through her mind like breaking waves. Tonight felt different, dangerous and electric, in ways that made her wolf stir for the first time in years. I can't, she breathed, stepping back from him. Every time I try to remember, I see fire and blood. Obsidian moved closer, his golden eyes never leaving her face. Then we'll make new memories first. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something that made Elara's world stop spinning. A small wooden music box, carved with dancing wolves under a crescent moon. You kept this too? Her voice cracked as she recognized the toy from her 7th birthday, the one she'd treasured before everything went wrong. I kept everything that reminded me of you. His fingers brushed hers as he wound the tiny key. The melody that tinkled out was hauntingly beautiful, a lullaby her mother used to sing. Your wolf isn't gone, Elara. She's just hiding behind walls you built to survive. Tears streamed down her cheeks as the music box played. Images flashed through her mind, running through moonlit forests as a child, laughing with Obsidian by this very fountain, the promise ring he'd given her when they were 12. But then came the darker memories. Screaming, the smell of smoke, her parents' lifeless eyes. I was supposed to protect you, Obsidian said, his voice thick with guilt. When the attack happened, I was visiting my uncle's pack. By the time I returned, he couldn't finish the sentence. You were just a boy, Elara whispered, touching his face gently. We both were. The music box wound down, its final notes hanging in the night air like a prayer. Obsidian took her hands in his, and she felt warmth spread through her body, not just from his touch, but from something deeper, something that had been sleeping inside her for 15 long years. Show me, she said suddenly, surprising them both. Show me what I've forgotten. Without waiting for his response, Elara closed her eyes and reached for the part of herself she'd buried. Pain shot through her body as if lightning was running through her veins. Her bones began to crack and shift, her skin rippling with the first signs of transformation she'd felt since that terrible night. But then the fear crashed over her like a tidal wave. The scent of burning wood filled her nostrils, and she heard her mother's dying scream echo through her memory. Her body snapped back to human form, leaving her gasping and shaking on the garden stones. "It's okay," Obsidian murmured, gathering her into his arms. "We'll try again tomorrow." "No." Elara's voice was stronger now, filled with determination that surprised them both. "I'm tired of being broken. I'm tired of letting fear control me." She looked up at him, silver light dancing in her gray eyes. "Help me remember who I used to be." Obsidian nodded slowly, understanding the trust she was placing in him. "The night before the attack, you gave me something else," he said quietly. "Something I've carried with me every day since." He rolled up his sleeve, revealing a tattoo on his forearm, a silver wolf howling at the moon, with the initial E woven into the design. "I got this on my 18th birthday, a promise that I would never stop looking for you." Elara traced the tattoo with her fingertip, feeling the raised skin where the ink had been embedded. "I remember now," she whispered. "I promised to wait for you, no matter how long it took." "They're coming tonight." Caspian burst through the throne room doors, his usually calm face twisted with panic. Blood dripped from a gash on his forehead, and his clothes were torn from battle. "Felbane's army? They've broken through the eastern border. But that's not the worst part." Obsidian rose from his chair, every muscle in his body tensing for war. "How many?" 300 wolves. Maybe more. But they're not alone." Caspian's voice dropped to a whisper. "They have silver chains. Obsidian. Enchanted ones. They're planning to capture Elara alive." The words hit Obsidian like a physical blow. Silver chains were forbidden weapons, designed to trap shifters in human form and cause excruciating pain. Only someone with deep knowledge of wolf magic could create them, someone who had access to ancient pack secrets. "Where is she?" Obsidian demanded, already moving toward the door. "The garden. She's been trying to shift again." "But," Caspian grabbed his king's arm. "There's something else. Something I should have told you sooner." Obsidian turned, his golden eyes blazing with barely controlled fury. "What?" "The night the Thornwick pack died, I was with the border patrol. We found tracks leading away from the massacre. Human tracks, mixed with wolf prints. Someone survived long enough to run, but they were injured, bleeding heavily." Caspian's face was pale with shame. "We should have followed them, but the fire was spreading too fast." "You think Elara escaped on her own?" Obsidian's mind raced with possibilities. A child, wounded and alone in the wilderness? "Not alone," a new voice said from the doorway. Both men spun to see Elara standing there, but she looked different, older somehow, with silver light radiating from her skin. "I wasn't alone that night." Her transformation had begun without either of them noticing. Her canine teeth were longer, sharper, and her fingernails had extended into claws. But most shocking of all were her eyes, no longer gray, but pure silver, glowing with ancient power. "Someone helped me escape?" Elara continued, her voice carrying a strange echo that made the stone walls vibrate. "Someone who knew the attack was coming. Someone who betrayed my pack from the inside." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees as her power filled the space. Tapestries fluttered without any wind, and the candles flickered as if afraid of her presence. "Who?" Obsidian asked, though part of him already suspected the answer. "Lord Felbane's brother," Elara said, her silver eyes fixed on something only she could see. "Matthias Felbane. He was courting my older sister, Elena. He pretended to love her, while feeding information about our defenses to his brother." The pieces clicked together in Obsidian's mind, like a deadly puzzle. The plague wasn't a plague at all. "Poison in the water supply," Elara confirmed. But Matthias had second thoughts at the last minute. He tried to save Elena, but she was already dying, so he grabbed me instead and ran. Outside, War horns echoed across the valley, a sound that meant their enemies had reached the castle walls. But inside the throne room, a different kind of battle was taking place. Elara's transformation was accelerating. 15 years of suppressed power finally breaking free. "Where is Matthias now?" Caspian asked, his hand moving instinctively to his sword. "Dead," Elara said simply. "Died of guilt 3 years after saving me. But before he died, he told me everything, including why Felbane wants me alive." Her human form was beginning to blur and shift, caught between two shapes as her wolf fought to emerge. The silver light around her grew brighter, and both men could feel the pull of her alpha bloodline, a power that rivaled Obsidian's own. "The Thornwick pack wasn't just any pack," she continued, her voice now carrying the harmonic undertones of her wolf. "We were guardians, keepers of the old magic, and that magic doesn't die with the pack. It passes to the last survivor." The castle shook as something massive struck the outer walls. Through the tall windows, they could see fires burning in the courtyard below. But Elara seemed untouched by the chaos, lost in the power that was finally claiming her. "Felbane thinks he can steal my magic if he captures me during a blood moon," she said, looking directly at Obsidian. "Tonight is a blood moon." The ground shook beneath their feet as hundreds of wolves surrounded the castle courtyard. Elara's hands trembled, but not from fear. Power was building inside her chest, like lightning in a storm cloud. For the first time in 15 years, her wolf was trying to wake up. "I remember everything now," she whispered to Obsidian, her voice growing stronger with each word. "Lord Felbane didn't just kill my family. He made me watch." The memory hit her like a punch to the stomach. She was 8 years old again, hiding in the root cellar while silver arrows flew through her bedroom window. Her mother's scream, her father's roar cut short. The smell of poison in the well water that made the pack too sick to fight back. "He wanted our land because it connects to the human trade routes," Elara continued, her gray eyes starting to glow like moonlight. "But he kept me alive because he thought I might be useful someday." Obsidian's jaw tightened. His own wolf was pacing inside him, ready to tear Felbane apart with his bare teeth. "That's why you had the scar. He marked you so no other pack would take you in." Around them, the Ravenhill pack was forming a protective circle, but Elara could feel their doubt like cold wind on her skin. They still saw her as the broken human their king had bought for pocket change. They didn't know she carried the blood of the most powerful pack in the northern mountains. "My queen," Caspian called out, running toward them with sweat on his forehead. "Felbane's forces have surrounded the castle, but something strange is happening. His wolves, they're not attacking. They're just standing there, waiting." Elara closed her eyes and reached out with senses she hadn't used since childhood. The forest was full of wolves, but underneath their wild scent was something else. Fear, confusion. Many of Felbane's pack members didn't want to be here. "He's controlling them," she realized. Felbane found a way to force wolves to obey him, even when they don't want to. That's how he's built such a large army. Obsidian's eyes went wide. No alpha should be able to control wolves from other packs. It went against every law of nature their kind lived by. How is that possible? "Dark magic," Elara said, and the words tasted bitter in her mouth. "The same magic he used to poison my pack's water supply. He's been studying forbidden spells for years." A howl echoed across the courtyard, long, sad, and full of pain. It was the sound of wolves crying for help. Even Felbane's own pack members were trapped by his evil magic. "We can't just fight them," Elara said, her mind racing. "If we hurt Felbane's wolves, we're hurting innocent people who don't have a choice. We need to break his control first." "But how?" Obsidian asked. "None of us know anything about dark magic." Elara touched the silver locket around her neck. Inside was a tiny piece of moonstone that had been passed down through her family for generations. Her grandmother had told her it would protect her from evil magic, but she'd never understood what that meant. "My grandmother was a magic user," she said slowly. "Before she died, she taught me a few things. but I was too young to really understand. Do you think you could remember enough to help? Before Elara could answer, a new voice cut through the night air. Well, well, the little Thornwick pup has finally found her way home. Lord Felbane stepped out of the shadows at the edge of the courtyard. He was a tall man with silver hair and red eyes that glowed in the darkness. Behind him walked dozens of wolves, with the same empty look in their eyes. Wolves who were being controlled against their will. Hello, Elara, Felbane said with a smile that made her skin crawl. You've grown up to be quite beautiful, despite that scar I gave you. I always wondered if you'd survive long enough for me to finish what I started. Obsidian stepped in front of Elara, his body already beginning to shift. You want her? You'll have to go through me first. Oh, I don't want to hurt her. Felbane laughed. I want to use her. Do you know why the Thornwick pack was so powerful? It wasn't just because they were strong fighters. They had something much more valuable, the ability to break magical spells. Elara's heart stopped. That's why her grandmother had been able to teach her about magic. That's why the Moonstone could protect her. Her family hadn't just been warriors, they'd been spellbreakers. You killed my family because you were afraid of us, she whispered. I killed your family because I needed their power, Felbane corrected. And now I'm going to take yours. You're going to help me control every wolf pack in the kingdom, whether you want to or not. The red glow in his eyes got brighter, and Elara felt something trying to push into her mind. It was like having someone grab her thoughts with icy fingers. She could feel Felbane trying to take control of her will, just like he'd done to his own pack. But the moonstone around her neck grew warm, and the invasion stopped. Felbane's smile disappeared. Interesting. You're stronger than I expected, but not strong enough. He raised his hands, and dark energy began swirling around his fingers. The controlled wolves behind him started moving forward, their eyes still empty and sad. Stop, Elara called out to them. You don't have to do this. Fight back. But they couldn't hear her. Felbane's magic was too strong. That's when Elara realized what she had to do. She couldn't just protect herself. She had to break the spell that was controlling all of these innocent wolves. And to do that, she would need to use power she wasn't sure she had. Obsidian, she said quietly, I need you to trust me. I'm going to try something my grandmother taught me, but I don't know if it will work. What do you need me to do? Keep Felbane busy for as long as you can, and whatever happens, don't let him touch me while I'm casting the spell. Obsidian nodded and shifted into his massive black wolf form. Around them, the Ravenhill pack did the same, forming a wall of fur and fangs between Elara and their enemies. Elara closed her eyes and placed both hands on the moonstone. She reached deep inside herself, looking for the magic her grandmother had planted there like a seed many years ago. At first, she felt nothing. Then, slowly, warmth began spreading through her chest. The spell-breaking power of the Thornwick pack was still there, waiting for her to claim it. But as the magic grew stronger, so did the danger. Felbane's controlled wolves were getting closer, and Obsidian couldn't hold them off forever. If Elara didn't work fast, everyone she loved would be in terrible danger. The silver light from her moonstone began to glow brighter and brighter, cutting through the darkness like a sword made of starlight. Light exploded from Elara's hands like a silver firework, washing over the entire courtyard in waves of pure magic. Every wolf touched by the light stopped moving, their eyes blinking in confusion, as Felbane's control over them shattered like glass. What? Where am I? Gasped a brown wolf near the castle gates. She shifted back to human form, looking around in horror. I remember now. He forced us to follow him. We couldn't say no. All across the courtyard, Felbane's army was waking up. Dozens of wolves were shifting back to their human forms, crying and hugging each other as they realized they were free. Many of them immediately turned toward Felbane, with anger burning in their eyes. You made me fight my own brother, shouted a young man with torn clothes. You made me leave my children. But Felbane wasn't finished yet. The spell-breaking had made him furious, and dark energy was pouring off him like smoke from a fire. Clever little girl, he snarled at Elara. But you've only delayed the inevitable. I don't need magic to kill you." He shifted into a massive gray wolf with red eyes and silver claws that looked sharp enough to cut through stone. This wolf was bigger than obsidian, bigger than any wolf Elara had ever seen. Dark magic had changed Felbane into something that was more monster than animal. Obsidian leaped forward to protect Elara, but Felbane was faster. His claws raked across Obsidian's side, sending the black wolf tumbling across the stones. Blood splattered on the ground, bright red in the moonlight. "No!" Elara screamed. But when she tried to run to Obsidian, her legs wouldn't move. Using the spell-breaking magic had drained almost all of her strength. She could barely stand up, let alone fight. Felbane stalked toward her with murder in his red eyes. "Your little light show was impressive, but now it's time to finish what I started 15 years ago. The Thornwick bloodline ends tonight." That's when something unexpected happened. The wolves that Elara had freed from Felbane's control stepped between them, forming a protective wall around her. Humans and wolves from a dozen different packs stood together, ready to fight for the woman who had given them back their freedom. "You want to hurt her?" called out the brown-haired woman who had spoken first. "You'll have to go through all of us." "She saved us," added the young man who had been forced to fight his brother. "Now we save her." But even with all these new allies, Elara knew they couldn't win. Felbane was too powerful, too twisted by dark magic. They needed something more. That's when she felt it, a stirring, deep inside her chest. Her wolf. After 15 years of silence, her wolf was finally ready to come back. "Hello, old friend," Elara whispered to the wild spirit that lived inside her heart. "I've missed you." The change came over her like warm honey flowing through her veins. Her bones stretched and reshaped themselves. Her skin sprouted thick silver fur that gleamed like starlight. Her hands became paws, with claws designed for both fighting and climbing. When the transformation was complete, Elara stood before Felbane as a silver wolf, with gray eyes that sparkled with ancient magic. She was smaller than him, but the power radiating from her fur made the air itself seem to hum with energy. "Impossible," Felbane breathed. "I destroyed your wolf 15 years ago. I felt it die when I gave you that scar." "You didn't destroy her," Elara replied, her wolf voice carrying across the courtyard like music. "You just taught her to hide, until she was strong enough to fight back." The two wolves circled each other, while everyone else watched in complete silence. This wasn't just a fight between two animals, it was a battle between good and evil, between freedom and control, between the old ways and the new. Felbane attacked first, his massive claws aiming for Elara's throat. But she was faster than he expected, dodging to the side and raking her own claws across his shoulder. Silver light followed her claws, and wherever it touched Felbane's dark magic, the evil energy began to dissolve. "You think your pretty light can defeat me?" Felbane roared, spinning around to snap at her with teeth like daggers. "I think my family's magic is stronger than your stolen power," Elara replied calmly, dancing away from his attack. They fought across the courtyard, crashing into walls and sending pieces of broken stone flying in all directions. Every time Felbane's claws or teeth connected with Elara's silver fur, dark magic tried to poison her. But every time her claws touched him, the spell-breaking power of the Thornwick bloodline ate away at the evil that had twisted him. Slowly, Felbane began to shrink. The dark magic that had made him into a monster was being burned away by Elara's light. His red eyes faded to yellow, then to brown. His massive size decreased until he was just a normal-sized gray wolf. "This isn't over," he panted, backing toward the forest. "I'll find another way. I'll come back stronger." "No," Elara said quietly. "You won't." She placed one silver paw on his forehead, and the last of her spell-breaking magic flowed into him. But instead of destroying him, it did something else. It took away his ability to use dark magic forever. Felbane collapsed to the ground, shifting back to human form. He looked older now, and tired, and very confused. I remember everything," he whispered. "All the terrible things I did, How do I live with this? The same way I lived with my scars, Elara said, shifting back to human form as well. One day at a time. And by trying to make things right, Obsidian limped over to Elara's side, his wounds already healing, thanks to his alpha strength. What happens to him now? Elara looked around at all the wolves Felbane had controlled, all the families he had torn apart, all the pain he had caused. Justice demanded punishment, but mercy demanded a chance for redemption. He'll stand trial before the Council of Alphas, she decided, and he'll spend the rest of his life working to undo the damage he's caused. Some wounds can't be healed, but that doesn't mean we stop trying. The crowd began to cheer, a sound that started softly and grew louder until it echoed off the castle walls like thunder. Wolves and humans alike were celebrating not just victory, but freedom, hope, and the return of the lost Thornwick heir. But Elara barely heard them. She was looking up at Obsidian, whose golden eyes were shining with love and pride and relief. "So," he said with a smile that made her heart skip, "ready to be a queen?" "Ready to be your queen," she corrected, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him under the silver moon. Around them, the celebration continued long into the night. Families were reunited. Old friends found each other again. And in the center of it all, two wolves, who had been separated by tragedy, had finally found their way back home. The girl who had once been worth only $1 had become a queen worth more than gold. But more importantly, she had learned that her true value had never been about what others were willing to pay for her. It had always been about what she was willing to fight for.